So one day we should do the post-show for pre-show and the pre-show for post-show.
Well, how about, you remember in the old days of TV where there'd be like 2-part episode and to be continued and you'd have to wait a week? If you remember correctly, last week we talked about poop. This week we're talking about boogers.
Absolutely.
A different bodily fluid every episode.
No, there's a reason why we're talking about this. This actually does have something to do with the news.
That's it?
We are talking, it does. For those of us who are recovering from the hurricanes and the storms that happen, we are dealing with flesh-eating bacteria along the Gulf Coast here. And this is my PSA for people. If you use a neti pot, and if you want to know what a neti pot is, Alex will explain it to you. If you're going to be using a neti pot, do not use tap water because it will eat your brain. Tell us about a neti pot, Alex.
Okay, yeah, I don't use... I use the powered device that it basically it puts suction on one nostril and water jet onto the other nostril, and it basically sends the saline solution up through the nostril, back around the sinus cavity, and then out through the other one.
This sounds like a form of mummification to me.
Yeah,
it kind of is, yes, and I understand that reference. I studied that in elementary school too, the mummification, and it really does feel like you're just kind of water jetting your brain a little bit. So I will either unlock secrets to the cosmos or just further decline into craziness.
Maybe that's how you get your cybersecurity insights.
I know that is. I'm going to be like a thought leader. I'm just going to be like, oh, let me hit the Navage there and be like, oh yeah, okay, now I got some great ideas for AI incorporation into things. Has anybody made an AI enabled toilet cam?
So
we talked about that last week.
Yeah, exactly.
Call back.
So for all of you filling out your bingo cards, we've had thought leader, we've hit AI, we've got boogers. What did we miss?
Well, if you ever end up as a thought leader, you're in a bad spot. You don't want that to happen. That's to be avoided at all costs.
Yeah.
I mean, we're borderline on Skibbity Toilet, so.
Well, did
daylight
everybody
savings
vote?
time is back, which means my room gets very dark now.
Oh, it does. But we can see your features, Ryan. You don't look like a serial killer to us.
You're well illuminated.
Wow.
I see sunshine out there in the corner, you liar. No one believes you.
But it's a lot dimmer than it usually is.
Oh. You live in Florida. Don't complain, okay? I'm going to enter the gray times for the next 6 months, okay?
The gray times.
The gray times are upon us. Get your tea and head to the hills.
Gray times, come on.
Come on.
So, Corey, we're so glad you're here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how ranty are you today?
Not very ranty, because I'm about to go on vacation. I guess I should just rant and then go on vacation and be like, all right, have fun with that.
Yeah,
Just
rant, get it
quit.
out of your system.
No, I'm
How
not
about
very
a thought
ranty.
leader rant?
I'm not. I can rant about thought leaders. We don't need them. Why would we need thought leaders? Everyone's a thought leader. You don't need to call yourself that.
I know people who consider being called a thought leader an insult.
Those are the people.
Yep.
Thought leader,
Influencer.
both can be insults.
Yes.
I'm just like, shut up.
I'm gonna go on LinkedIn and change my job title to thought leader real quick.
Dude, thought leading influencers.
Yes.
Thought leading influencing rock star.
I should put that I'm a nominee for the Difference Maker podcast.
Oh no, I'm seeing in the Discord chat that we're losing numbers because you're not ranting enough, Corey.
Uh-oh.
Turn the
What do you
heat
mean
up.
we're losing numbers? What does that even mean?
We're not.
There are no numbers.
I think the graph's going in the wrong direction.
Who's looking at a graph? All right, whoever has the graph, I'm going to make it go up and to the right. Roll the finger.
Is the graph in mirroring mode?
Roll the finger.
Is the graph mirrored?
The graph is mirrored. Yeah, it's going down and to the left somehow.
All right, here comes the video.
Hello and welcome to Black Hills Information Security's Talkin Bout News. It's November 4th, 2024. And today, we're talking about vaping, or I mean neti pots, or I mean cybersecurity. Sorry, I got confused there for a second. This is a cybersecurity podcast. If anyone's interested in my thought leadership podcast, Neti Pots International, that's a different podcast. Welcome everyone to the show. We've got tie-dye Alex. Nice tie-dye. Do you have anything you'd like to share about that epic tie-dye? Did you make it yourself?
No, but I did go to the Pinball Hall of Fame in Vegas, so that's where I got it from, and love pinball and all the excellent things that come out from it.
Would you say you're a pinball wizard?
I am a pinball wizard. Yeah.
Oh, nice. No one else has any like noticeably cool clothes except for Shecky, who has a blue team shirt. BHIS represent. Yeah.
Woohoo!
We're all blue team. Let's just admit it. We're all blue team. Even us red teamers are blue team.
In your own
Deep
way,
down.
it is. It is true.
All right. Let's talk about, I think there's two articles that are super interesting to me specifically. The first one is Midnight Blizzard using RDP phishing. And this is interesting because this is a Black Hills Information Security homegrown tactic, which I love.
Oh,
and
snap.
is also kind of terrifying.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
So
I
Ryan will
got rid of
find the
pop-up.
article, but
Yeah,
basically
I
Midnight
just gotta
Blizzard.
close the pop-up. There we go.
Oh
Now
yeah,
there it
just
is.
Ryan, you're gonna want to just open that RDP file and then type in your credentials.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So now that Ryan's been fished, basically Midnight Blizzard, which I guess is Russian, is sending reverse RDP phishing, which is a tactic that we announced or released in 2022. This was released by Mike Felch, who is no longer with Black Hills, works with Trusted Sec, but it's still on our blog, and I'm assuming they read our blog and were like, that's a good idea, and now they're doing it. For those curious how reverse RDP phishing works, basically the target receives a .rdp file. That file then, if they open it, connects into an attacker-controlled computer. Then that computer is basically an attacker-controlled computer. You can see their clipboard. You can see their files. You can also just have them log into the computer, do all kinds of other stuff. So basically, this is a real threat actor using a tactic that we released in 2022. So I just think that's a funny callback. Did we tell Microsoft to fix it? Yeah, we did.
And it seems they ignored us as usual.
And yeah, they ignored us.
It's not a bug, it's a feature.
It is a
So
feature.
let's talk about RDP a little bit. How many organizations do you think are still using RDP?
Too many.
100%.
Yeah, you know me.
100. All
Yeah,
organizations.
all of them. Everybody.
I call RDP ransomware deployment protocol.
Oh,
I even have a shirt for it.
Is that kind of like
That's
how RAM
amazing.
stands for rarely adequate memory?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
So,
exactly
I mean,
like that.
There's a lot of RMMs out there, right? They all cost money. A remote desktop's already built into Microsoft Windows and all the other platforms, so it's really easy to interact with. So it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Nope. Yeah,
Yeah, because
I mean,
they will
there are-
reverse
yeah.
tunnel through that RDP back into the console, much like
Yeah.
a VNC connection. And some of them are even very free. Like, I'm not going to say anybody because I don't want threat actors to go using them that more than they already are. But yeah, it's a free thing to tunnel back through and be able to connect into workstations. So it's not going to go away anywhere anytime soon.
Nope. Yeah, I mean, as far as like, it does have to be signed, with the valid certificate. That's a really high bar to pass. I feel like this also relies on email phishing, filtering and stuff. But basically, what we recommend when we use this tactic on our clients, what we recommend is don't allow these files inbound. Don't allow RDP files. If you're a Black Hills Information Security Red Team client, you didn't get affected by this campaign because we already tried it and it didn't work. So you should be good.
No, and I did a similar thing. Like, I absolutely love like breach attack simulation tools because I just loaded up that campaign and been like, I'm pretty sure we block RDP files, but let me specifically select the RDP file campaign that Midnight Blizzard is doing, emulate that in their environment, and go, yep, it's blocked. So I love those things because you're going to get an executive that, in my case, I did, asked about it, and you go, yeah, I just simulated that an hour ago. Here's the latest results. We're good. And then they can pass that on for client contact or any sort of client inquiries as well. So, yeah, love those tools and love being able to emulate that in the environment for go and going and checking that you go, hey, I'm pretty sure we have this locked down. Go ahead and emulate it, check it again. Works really well. Or call BHIS and be on there. Use their services. They'll make sure you're covered.
Hey, Ralph, can I follow up on something you said? I see a question in our Discord channel. Is there an actual need for RMM anymore? Since you brought it up.
I mean, is there a need for remote management software?
I think that's what they're asking.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, so this is things like TeamViewer, Rest Desk, AnyDesk, all of these.
BombGuard.
A BombGuard, yeah. And yeah, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. I believe Microsoft's Intune has it now built in. The remote management software.
Quick Assist is built in.
Yeah, so it's part of the Intune suite. So it is Quick Assist. So yes, to bring that up, Quick Assist, which is like a TeamViewer alternative, is actually default installed already on Microsoft Windows, right?
Mhm.
And what
Attackers would never use that.
Yes, is quick access to a system. And the way that they work, in short, is they have some ID, maybe a password that appears as soon as you start the software, and someone asks, hey, what's the ID? What's the password? And then they can log in on the computer and do some kind of remote assistance, right? Yeah, they're definitely not going anywhere. They're really popular in MSPs.
MSPs, yeah.
Yes, they're, that's how they do their day-to-day activities, where, somebody calls up and says, hey, my email's not working or whatever. Instead of them describing it on the phone, they log into their system and they use one of these tools, to do that activity. So yeah, they're very popular.
I mean, the other thing to keep in mind is as security gets more complicated, these RMM tools get used even more, because when you don't have a flat network, you can't just RDP everywhere. So then you need RMM tools even more that call out to a centralized point of control. I mean, they're basically corporate deployed C2 or, they're command and control servers, basically.
Yeah, exactly. They are.
But you need that, because if your business unit in London doesn't talk to your business unit in America, and a help desk person is in America trying to get to a system, what are you going to do? You can't just be like, hey, I'm going to email you this RDP file. So, yeah.
The problem with the tools come in is the security levels of them and how easy they are to get somebody to fall for it. And that's where I see it all the time from MSSPs and MSPs, is they'll use something such as TeamViewer, which has known vulnerabilities, but they never actually get around to really updating it, because they've got so many clients out there that they need to keep everything on the up and up, and it would take them too long and use too much manpower to go ahead and do it. I've seen that happen plenty of times over the course of things. As far as RDP goes, I'm seeing that less and less on the outside, but I'm seeing it used internally, and that's being limited by different networks and what networks are allowed to talk to one another on the ports.
I mean, internally, that's the only way that you configure Windows Server, right? Like this is, they're like, no one's going, I mean, let me take two steps back. First of all, no one's going physically to that server because it's a virtual machine in the first place, right? And, the virtual machine consoles inside of all of the virtual machine systems, you could use those, right? But they're not nearly as fast or as fluid as a remote desktop. So internally, it's being used like crazy for managing Microsoft Windows Server environments, or any other kind of environment around that. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's also, it's really a security awareness thing as well. Like, knowing that these kinds of reverse connection attacks are going to be on the rise, right? We've actually talked about using these exact attacks to target help desk people, of being like, hey, can you remote into my computer and check if your credentials work, right? Like, and they're just connecting into a non-managed computer, just like something we control. I mean, basically, like, connecting into a computer can also put you at risk, even though you might think, well, I'm connecting to their computer, but you don't realize that you're exchanging information, with the attacker at the same time. So
yeah, I mean, also, like, as the BSA for remote management software, like, if your organization uses RMM, they don't use every RMM. Like, inventory what you're using and close off all of the other things. Because if you sit there and you go, do we use TeamViewer? No, TeamViewer isn't allowed. Cool. Block the TeamViewer ports. But there are a lot of organizations that go, well, we use RMM, so let's just open up the ports for everything, for Kaseya, for TeamViewer, for RDP, for whatever, because we don't know what RMM tools are used, so we need to allow access for all of them.
Yes.
And this is when people start calling us because they don't know what the F is going on anymore.
Yep.
And this is the sucky part about cybersecurity is that RMM tools were created to solve problems, and they do. And then bad guys come along and they just mess it all up. And now we have to do all this other stuff to keep our cool tools from being hijacked and used for badness. And it sucks.
Listen,
was that ranty enough?
Part of the problem actually falls on the MSP side, because they all use the same damn tools, and what they wind up doing is they rebrand them, and then the security team goes ahead, and I've run into this at a place I worked at, goes ahead and says, what tool are you using so that way we can make sure that we are being safe? And they say, sorry, it's our secret sauce. We're not telling you anything. We're safe. We're this, we're that, we're the other thing. And we're sitting there going, well, we're not letting you in. The second that they go ahead and run something, all of a sudden nowadays with the EDRs, you can see exactly what tool it is. And you say, oh, this is the tool. No, we're not opening up this port and this port and this port because you say so. This tool only needs this, this, and this. So the RMMs don't, the MSSPs don't know what they actually need opened.
No.
So
Most of the time,
at you.
Most of the time, the MSP, this is going to get really, really ugly and really, really bad. So
bring it.
So the content, the following statement is by me and nobody from Black Hills. But most MSPs are just idiots. I'm sorry, they are. They don't mandate MFA or 2FA. They don't go through the vendor's best security practices to secure the tools that they have in place, and then they become vulnerable. And they're like, "Oh, the vendor didn't advise me." Come on, I mean, secure your own house. You want to yell at your clients about getting more secure, doing cybersecurity training, and doing this and doing that, but you're not willing to do it yourself. I mean, we at some point we need to start looking internally to the people who are using the technology day in, day out, and be like, you're to blame for all of this crap that's going on right now.
Wait a minute.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
People take ownership for their own screw ups?
Never, ever. Let's blame the government for everything.
Hey,
no. That's why lawyers exist. All
that's
right,
a great segue. Let's talk about Delta and CrowdStrike.
No, we talked about that last week. There's nothing.
No, there's juicy follow-up, Corey.
Oh,
it's good stuff.
How is it real? All right, hit us with the juicy follow-up.
Okay, but only if we talk Disney afterwards.
Yeah, we got it. Go ahead.
Okay,
we got it.
So, just the quick TLDR for those of you who aren't following this, like the Real Housewives of Atlanta, like I am.
Which you should be, because subscribe to Black Hills InfoSec Talking About News podcast. Anyway.
So Delta has filed a suit against CrowdStrike for at least $500 million in immediate losses, as well as punitive damages for the CrowdStrike incident that happened in July of 2024. And listen to what I'm saying carefully, because it matters. Delta filed it in a state court. CrowdStrike filed a countersuit in federal court against Delta, saying that Delta has a limitation of liability and an exclusion of consequential damages. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, Corey, because it's very interesting. One of CrowdStrike's tactics in this is to say that Delta hasn't followed good cybersecurity hygiene. And what the CrowdStrike attorneys pulled out was, and I didn't know this either, it was kind of interesting. So the Transportation Safety Oversight Board is what oversees TSA at airports. They actually came out with an order that says TSA has the ability to determine implementation of critical cybersecurity mitigation measures. And TSA has the ability to exercise emergency regulation authority. Emergency regulatory authority. And basically what CrowdStrike is saying is that Delta didn't even follow TSA and the Transportation Safety Oversight Board's basic minimum standards for cybersecurity hygiene. And I have the filing if anybody's interested in reading it. But basically, you mentioned a little earlier when we were talking about RMMs about network segmentation. One of the stipulations in the cybersecurity regulations is that those organizations that are providing national transportation needs, like an airline like Delta, has to develop network segmentation in the case of failed patches. So this Delta CrowdStrike lawsuit face-off is getting more and more juicy.
Can I weigh in real quick?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this goes right back to one of my other major gripes is self-assertion. A lot of companies will go through and say, yes, we're following 801, they NIST 800-171, and then they want to throw up their hands and be like, oh, we can't adhere to CMMC because it's such an uplift when it's only 13 extra controls, so we step back. But anyway, about to this story, if you go in and read, CrowdStrike is also stating, and I know because Barricade Cyber, we are a CrowdStrike partner. We use them inside and out in so many different ways. So I can tell you with 100% certainty, even our small organization was getting calls twice a day from our account team. Hey, do you need anything? Hey, do you need anything? And in that article, they quote CrowdStrike and Microsoft both reached out to Delta numerous times saying, hey, we have a team standing by. We could put boots on the ground to help you recover. And they just threw up their hands. No, we got it. We got it. You know, they
called an IBM. That's what they actually did. They called an IBM to help.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have the vendor who, in all intents and purposes, caused the issue, trying to make it right. When you look at your
and they gave a $15 Uber Eats gift card. Get yourself a little slice of cake. That's good enough. All your systems are down. Here's a slice of cake.
Yeah.
So Corey, let me follow up on something that you might like to riff on. In Delta's lawsuit against CrowdStrike, they said that CrowdStrike intentionally created and exploited an unauthorized door to the kernel.
I mean, that's going to be interesting for a judge to take a look at that because it is true. But the problem is that it's going to hit up against the wall that every other, like, that is industry standard. That's what CrowdStrike's going to say. They're going to say all EDRs are in the kernel, or at least all ones that are worth anything. So it's not like we did this because we had to. This is just what products of this caliber do. It's not like we did this specially and, on our own volition without, any reason for it. It's going to be necessary. I mean, I don't know. I think we should move on. This article is the same as it was last week. Basically, the CEO of Delta doesn't like the CEO of CrowdStrike. They don't go golfing together anymore. Let's move on.
Gosh.
Yeah.
All right. All right. What you got then, Corey? Hit it.
Okay, let's talk about these Steeler takedowns, or we could talk about Disney. Either or. I want to talk about the Steeler takedown. So this has been something that comes up on the show quite often. Basically InfoStealers, we have blogs about it. We have, we've talked about it ad nauseum. I have an entire webcast where I was with Flair and we talked about InfoStealers. But this one, RedLine, is particularly one of the older ones that hasn't been taken down or hadn't been taken down until recently. So recently, on this article was published on October 29th, but basically, the RedLine Stealer was taken down. Obviously, we'll get into the details of why that is kind of not really true. But basically, they found the creator, who's a Russian national. They arrested, or at least indicted, that person. And then they also took down some central servers in, I believe, the Netherlands or something. And there's a separate article that we can talk about as well. That's basically the OPSEC failures of this person who developed it, including also the dating profile of the person who developed it. But sexy. I mean, basically for anyone that doesn't know, this Stealer, the RedLine Stealer, is definitely one of the more prolific ones. It's been out for a long time and it's caused a lot of damage. One of the tidbits from the article that kind of blew my mind is they say that it's infected hundreds of DoD systems. I'm like, who released that statistic? Like, who admitted to that? I don't know. I don't know if that's like OSINT, like they figured that out through OSINT, or if the DoD actually like said, yeah, we're going after these people because they've infected hundreds of our systems. Like, that's kind of awkward. But yeah, basically, the developer was a Russian national. as far as OPSEC failures, you can read the full article for the details, but basically they don't appear to have tried to use any OPSEC at all. And that kind of brings my question to the group is, if you're a Russian national making malware, do you need OPSEC or do you just do it like from your own real name? And like, who cares at that point, right? Do you even need OPSEC? I don't know.
I mean, there's also the point that it's like you're stealing all of this information, all of this data, and you still can't get a date.
Yeah. Apparently Bitcoins,
That was a hard hit.
they don't impress the ladies. I don't know. But
Bazinga.
yeah, I mean, I will say this whole thing, the infostealer economy or whatever you want to call it, there are like hundreds of these things. The concept of taking down one of them is like saying we took down this ransomware. It's like, okay, well, guess what? Like there's Lockbit 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. There's probably Lockbit 19.0. The versions, this software ends up getting open sourced, leaked, remixed, and there's multiple other stealers that I know of off the top of my head. There's the meta stealer, that one also has been like in law enforcement activity, but there's also Steal C or a bunch of other. Turns out the concept of running grabbing credentials and information from a system is not really a super hard to implement concept. We've built our own stealer at Black Hills. Lots of people have built stealers, so not that big of a deal. However, I think the biggest other thing about the economy that's interesting is some of the customers that use this stealer also are under law enforcement attention within the Netherlands. So that's, I guess, good. But it does kind of get into that whole like info stealer economy. We'll see if this has any effect.
And for the info stealer economy, like I wanted to state just from like one of my experiences for like the vector that these things are getting in. Most of the times when they land on the shores and I look at them, it's not through the phishing campaigns, because most of the times those get blocked by a corporation. A lot of times I found that they are coming through because of cracked software on a personal machine. Like somebody's, you have an employee that they have their personal laptop, kid downloads some illicit software or some like cracked version of something, and it gets infected, and we see it like when they bring it to connect to the employer's Wi-Fi, like the guest Wi-Fi.
Or VDI.
Yep. We see it beaconing out and we go, okay, so that's something that is not in a lot of security awareness, going like, hey, don't let your kids on your machines, don't download this, cracked software is bad. You have the don't click on things, you have all the phishing campaigns that are out there, but you might not have as many campaigns for, hey, don't, if it's software that normally costs a lot of money and you're finding it somewhere for free, that's almost 100% a trap. If you're going to sit there and go, wait, well, I can get Adobe Photoshop for free? Tell me more. And you just
tell me more.
Well, that scenario I think is the biggest. I think that's the biggest like cause and effect we've seen with enterprises are the contractors, like people who are brought in. They're maybe they're offshore or who knows their details, but they need to use a certain software, and that becomes. And then of course when those people are breached, their credentials, they have credentials for 20 or 30 different companies. So.
Exactly.
But yeah, I don't know. I just thought that one was interesting. Finally, some retribution for these, people that have caused so much strife. I will say that the RedLine stealer has been packaged up in more ways than you could ever count. It's been used in every social engineering, every phishing campaign, every malware, cracked software, all that stuff. It's definitely the big one if there's one big one.
Corey, how many info stealers are you going to get in your Christmas stocking this year?
Ooh.
I mean, all of them.
Well, it depends how naughty or nice you are, I think.
No, I'm a gray hat. It's unclear. So, okay, let's talk about Disney, because this one ties up. It ties up an article that we talked about before, which I was shocked that they didn't mention this in the article. So, let's talk about the article first, and then we'll talk about the tie-in to a previous article that we had talked about for Disney. But basically, does anyone want to brief this one so I can stop talking and save our audience some sad times?
I mean, I read through this one, and it was, the Disney employee went through and
ex-employee.
ex-employee.
he had already
went
been
through.
released, and he
He had
still
been
had
Released. Is that the
Here's
Disney
the key
term?
point, like,
Released?
Yes, he's been
Yeah, so
released.
his
the
credentials
HR
had not
term.
been revoked, though. So his credentials had not been revoked, which is like the big thing. So, again, if you're taking down all of like the PSAs from this talk, starting with Netipod at the top and then all the way down to when somebody is terminated, remove their access. You can write that on your notepad too. But it's like, so what he had done is he had changed. It seems like he changed the name for like the font files so that like when it fetches like the fancy Disney font file, it's bringing up wingdings instead. So it breaks that. The printed menus, he changed the QR codes on the printed menus to take it to a political site between Israel Palestine. So it redirected there. And then also like just as like the hacks that can impact life is removing some of the allergen information from menus and from information. So he did all of that as kind of a disgruntled ex-employee that still had access. And I'm really surprised that Disney of all places.
It was probably a
revoke
third
access.
party. It was probably a third party called like Menu Magic or something, and no one thought about it. Okay, so to tie this back, I don't know if maybe Ryan can find the article, but Disney is currently under a lawsuit where someone went to it was like a Disney managed property, ate something with an allergen in it, and then actually, unfortunately, did die. And so the lawsuit is basically claiming that Disney gave this person assurances that there was no allergens of this type in the food, and then there actually were, and the person ended up passing away. But my thing is, it would be really interesting. The more, this isn't what happened, but it'd be more interesting if like the person got into like a big disagreement with Disney over that lawsuit, and then like said like, well, screw it, then I'm gonna like put you on blast for this like menu allergen stuff. But sadly, no, it was just someone being disgruntled. But
Corey, was that the same story where Disney tried to dismiss everything and put everything through arbitration because they were a member or signed up for a trial of Disney
They
Plus?
were a subscriber to Disney Plus.
Okay. I was trying to make sure it was part of the same ecosystem. Okay, I'm tracking.
Yes, it was an absolutely insane.
Agreed to the agreement when they signed.
It was an insane legal. I mean, I think they ended up. They abandoned the effort. That's what this article says. So I'm glad that confirms what I remember. So basically, the angle that the lawyers tried to pull, or should I call them the mousers? I don't really know what to call them. Basically, they tried to claim because this person who unfortunately died was a Disney Plus subscriber that they had to agree to arbitration, which they ended up giving up on that. So the lawsuit is going forward for real. But yeah, I don't know, just two weird articles that aren't actually tied together whatsoever, but in my opinion, just fit right together in my brain.
So would an insider threat program address manipulating fonts like that? Probably not. But
no.
It makes me wonder really what his beef was with Disney to target allergens, knowing that you're really going to potentially hurt somebody else, is really mean.
I feel like that was potentially not the intention. I feel like the intention was break things, and the allergens are Disney's angle of this is why what you did is bad. That's my take. That's my personal take. And as far as why that's what they went for, I'm guessing that's all they had access to. Let me tell you how it works from an adversary perspective, and this is exactly how it works from an insider threat perspective. When I get in trouble when people are trying to lock down my access to a company, whatever I have left that still refreshes and works, I'm going to try to use it for evil purposes. That's the exact same thing an insider threat would do, right? Like when we compromise an account, we launch every single Okta or whatever M365 session, every single app they can get to, we will launch. Some of those apps inevitably will have way longer timeouts than everything else, or will have separate credentials or things. I'm guessing that was the scenario here where like this user, their domain account had been locked, their Okta was reset, or their Microsoft was reset. All their sessions were reset, but either they had a separate login to this menu application, or they had a long-lived session timeout. So yeah, basically, I'm sure Disney now has in their offboarding procedures, or I didn't see any fun recommendations for what Disney would call firing. But whatever Disney would call firing, their document that says what to do definitely includes check if the user had any third-party applications such as Menu Magic or whatever. I just made that up. It doesn't really exist. But yeah.
Well, but you're hitting on a key critical point, Corey, and that is that all of these malicious actors, they're opportunists. If they can get their grubby paws on something, they're going to. And it's unless it's something that is targeted and has a specific financial objective in mind. I mean, look at when people's websites get hacked. It's all about what could they grab onto and mangle, and it's just, yeah, like Kelly said, it's mean.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, that's what disgruntled employees are trying to do. Be mean. That is exactly their goal. I will say, though, to wrap it up, if you're considering being a disgruntled employee yourself, would not recommend. This person's facing up to 15 years in prison or something. Like, so,
yeah, I was getting ready to say the legal ramifications of people actually getting hurt because of the allergies. They're going to have some criminal charges for potential manslaughter or aggravated assault or whatever they may throw at this individual. It's going to be very, very bad. So please think through your consequences before you do your actions. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Maybe just go get drunk with your friends. Come on, normal. Do something. You could do something stupid. Just make it self-destructive.
Wait, Corey, you're assuming that they have friends. Corey, you're assuming they have friends.
Okay, get drunk to the point where you think you have friends. I don't know.
Let me just clarify something real quick, though, Eric. That particular situation we've been talking about was filed under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and it's not manslaughter. The Computer Fraud and Abuse Act says harm to a person up to $5,000 worth of damage. So the point that makes me feel sad is apparently, according to the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, a person's life is only worth $5,000.
Well,
so it says up to 5,000. That's so what I'm going to push back. And this again, I'm not, or I say it many times, I'm not a lawyer, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. I think that's where when your charges are elevated. So like hypothetically, let's say, let's just take the larceny, whether you have petty larceny or grand larceny, because of that certain dollar amount. So I'm going to assumption being the mother of all evil, that that 5,000 is you're here, or if it's more than you actually lost a life or something like that, then it gets elevated in that sort of scenario that I'm hypothetical scenario that I'm putting out there. Is what I'm assuming is going to happen. So we'll have to see where it comes out at the end. But I wouldn't say that they limited a life at 5,000. I just think the statutory limitations of said claim is at that $5,000 before it goes on to the more severe additional charges.
I think they would be charged with more had they actually caused impact to human life. But it sounds like in this scenario, they're not able to be charged with this. Also, just to run through some of the ChatGPT recommendations for firing at Disney, here's the options. You have magically unimagineered, which is hard to say. You have taking a permanent phantasmic leave, journeying to the unemployed kingdom. That might be
these are bad movies.
Journey to the unemployed kingdom is so funny. All right, I'm gonna go.
I like wishing on a star for a new job.
Happily ever after somewhere else. All right, moving on. What else?
Okay, I've got another one you're gonna find boring, but I think it's important to bring up. Let's talk about HIPAA.
I'm captivated.
Let's talk about hippos. Is it a baby hippo? Those things are so cute.
Hey, did you see was it the baby hippo?
They are dangerous, though. Even the baby.
I've seen on Twitter
dangerous
where
if you're
hippo
a pumpkin.
kicked the president.
I always give way to things that have more mass than me. Always.
All right, tell us about hippos.
Let's talk about HIPAA and risk assessments. So OCR, the office that actually sets about Health and Human Services is managed by OCR. OCR actually now you got me all worked up. I can't even think straight.
Breathe, Kelly. Breathe.
There was the first financial fine to an organization, an ambulance service, for not actually doing a risk assessment against ePHI. And I find this really sort of interesting because HIPAA is old. It's been around for a long time. We're talking about Computer Fraud and Abuse Act a little earlier. HIPAA is almost as old, if not maybe slightly younger. But we've been telling people to do risk assessments on data for years and years and years. And finally, we're getting some teeth in the regulation. Now, granted, it wasn't a very big fine, and usually when it comes to federal regulations and regulators, you don't admit that you've done something wrong. They give you a fine, you admit that you'll improve your program, and you move on from there. But I just kind of want to bring this to your attention. If you're not doing risk assessments regularly, regardless if you're in healthcare or not, maybe 2025, instead of losing weight and eating better, you should do a risk assessment instead.
Totally. And the HIPAA requirement for a risk assessment is not that high. Right, Kelly? Like, you don't have to actually get a real pen test. You can just do a controls assessment or something, right? Like, you don't have to go crazy with it, right? It can be low cost, easy, right?
That was some dangerous ground there, Corey. What do you mean by a real pen test versus a fake pen test?
Hiring Black Hills versus running a scanner tool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Or filling out a spreadsheet versus having packets at your network.
Did you do your risk assessment lately? You're good.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's yeah. It's Kelly, not hard.
Kelly,
it shouldn't be hard.
I want to throw this one back a little bit to you. Have you looked at the total revenue for this county? Because 90,000 seems pretty low for a county to pay out, and I pretty much would go out on a limb to say it's probably less or right about their 10% that that the requirement is. So until it actually has a real impact against that county, like financially, they're not going to change. They're just like, yeah, we'll do better. I
actually disagree with that, because I think the CISO looks at it and says, why did we have to pay this? Or maybe not the CISO, but CTO, whatever. Some executive looks at it and says, yes, it's only $90,000, but this is still money we didn't have to spend. Like that it's unnecessary. I feel like it's one of those things. It's kind of like a fee. Can people, like a parking ticket or something? If I got a parking ticket, I'd be way more upset than just because I had to deal with it than I would just paying the parking ticket. You know what I mean?
Well,
I don't know.
Again,
you're both right.
The 90,000, I think, maybe a lot less than it would be to actually for them to implement it. So, there's like, okay, either we can pay, 150, 200K to fix all this crap that we're doing, or we'll just pay the 90,000 and move on and probably be still fine for another couple of years until we get hit again.
Sure. The other gotcha in that article isn't just the 90,000. Not only do they have to pay the money, but they're under a corrective action plan, which means they're monitored by OCR for the next 3 years. That usually means they have to hire an outside consultant to come in and manage their corrective action plan. That gets expensive.
Wow.
So manage. Sorry.
Yeah. No,
it does. So I've got a friend who, you remember Facebook also had a regulatory action against them, and they've got a 20-year compliance plan. That's his whole job, is submitting compliance reports to FTC on behalf of Facebook. So it may not necessarily be the fine, it's the follow-up corrective action. So not only do you may have to hire an outside consultant, now a certain percentage of your full-time staff members are following up and reporting to an outside agency. And if you've ever been in that position, it is very time-consuming. You've got to dot your I's, cross your T's, and you're not doing the business of your business. You're not making widgets or, having a magical experience or whatever it is you do for your business.
Something tells me, and I could be completely wrong here. Well, I wasn't expecting to be big. Sorry. Something's telling me that the managing the remediation process, when I'm thinking back on my cases that we've worked recently, is a very loose term. Us emailing our point of contact for a case for remediation, and they don't implement whatever or fix whatever we're trying to get done to bring them back up to a certain standard, is technically managing. We're managing to notify them, hey, you need to fix this. Hey, you need to fix this. So I guess, I guess the follow up to you, and because of my lack of knowledge, just because you have someone managing, is there a follow-up meeting with OCR saying, yep, we managed it, they improved by this metric amount, things of that nature, and they're like, okay, we forgive you of this infraction type of thing. So I'm like, what does a post-op look like for OCR? Because that's the one thing I've never seen.
There's no forgiveness. This is not the Catholic Church here. You're issued.
No Hail
Well,
Marys.
they only forgave for a price anyway.
Do 3
your
Hail Marys and
indulgences.
don't crash your ambulance next time. All right, anyway.
You're locked into that corrective action plan, and perhaps I hear your point, Eric, that from a technical point of view, maybe it is just a small meeting or an email, but you also have attorneys involved, and the attorneys are crafting the response. You have maybe a compliance person who's involved if there's a third party. So it's your time multiplied by other people's times. And at that point, 1 + 1 = 10.
That's that
So,
new math. Got it.
If anyone's curious, ChatGPT did the math on that one. But basically, the beginning, the cash balance. So this company, or this, I found online, there's a PDF because it's a public entity. But I found some random public report that basically says their beginning cash balance for July 1st was 1.1 million. Their ending cash balance is 1.5 million. Like, they're a pretty small entity. They're collecting a total of $2 to $3 million a month in income. I guess that's not tiny, but 90,000 is still a sizable chunk of money for someone at that scale, I think. But yeah, they probably have pretty thin margins.
Probably.
Can we talk
Anyway.
about another one I got? This one's going to be a short one. This one is the security researchers find a zero-click bug in the Synology Photos app.
Synologies
Yes.
are actually developed by APTs to get footholds on your home network.
So,
if you ask me,
it sure seems that way sometimes.
The two things I just wanted to hit on is that this is not the first nor the last time neither a Synology or some other kind of like self-hosted application is going to fall victim or be discovered that there's a zero-click vulnerability or some other way to totally compromise that device.
These things are botnets waiting to happen.
Yes, but my remediation here is not to necessarily go throw them all away and say that they're all junk or that we don't need them, but to think about how you use this device. For a lot of people, this Photos app is maybe getting shared with a couple people. So just putting it behind a VPN is probably a really great step. And you should think about that in all of the security of any kind of public-facing device, right? Does it need to be consumed by any random person on the internet, or does it just need to be consumed by my company internally? Then I don't need it on the internet, right?
Yes, totally.
So just thinking about these things when you're deploying them for yourself or for whoever, right, can really help avoid the risk that is inherent with having anything publicly exposed on the internet. So,
yeah. I mean, I think that like a lot of these devices are marketed as like cloud in your house, and it's like, turns out cloud does have to be secured. You can't just put it in your house. Like it's, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. I mean, basically my opinion on these kinds of things is any product like this that's sold without auto updates is not worth buying. Like when people come to me in my personal life and say, hey, I'm looking at purchasing a router or something like this, I always say, I don't know. I don't have personal opinions on this, although use TrueNAS. But the like whatever it is, as long as it automatically updates its own firmware without you having to do anything, it's fine. Like, I do think that's a key thing to have.
Yeah. It is interesting though, whenever you think about how these things are developed or whatever, and it's not just Synology, it's the Palo Altos, it's Sophos, it's all these large products that create firewalls or any kind of endpoint device, right? Or like a perimeter facing device.
Yep, anything that has UPnP enabled.
Yes, exactly. And some bad decisions are made, but if you're thinking about how do I secure this thing because I still need a firewall or whatever that device is, just think about how it's going to be used, and maybe its purpose isn't necessarily going to be, available to everybody, right? So configuring, the least likely to expose yourself to the whole internet, because if you look at, all the different countries, and everyone are scanning all the time. So if you're the only one using it, does it really need to be open to everybody? So yeah, just something to think about.
What if I'm in Russia and I want to access my photos?
Yes, exactly.
I want to bring this back to an elementary angle, actually. In the article, it articulates a zero-click vulnerability, something that a lot of people that have been listening to the news or other podcasts really haven't been hearing a lot about. I know for me in the last year, that's something not heavily talked about, that, the name kind of says it, the end user doesn't have to click something for this vulnerability to be exploited or leveraged. So Kaspersky, just in a quick Google search, what's a zero-click vulnerability? Basically, a zero-click hack exploits flaws in the device, making use of the data verification loophole. Basically saying the vulnerability is there, whether you're seeing it or not, whether you're activating it or not. So anybody who's a C-suite executive that might come across this, or if this ever gets clipped into like a short for any sort of social media, it's also important to acknowledge that just because you're not engaging to have that vulnerability like be exploited, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's there, which is why you have a cybersecurity division in the first place.
Anyone that lives at, we can also talk about the, BYOD home office, small office thing, right? Like, does anyone remember the Cisco compromise from a long time ago? That was all started from someone's Plex server that got popped. The last one I remember, I don't know, it was a couple of years ago. Basically, people's home devices, people's home networks are in scope for a lot of corporate networks. This is the part of the third-party risk picture. You have Synology NAS on your home network, your work computers on your home network. The botnet angle, meaning the attackers are just taking control of it so they can send spam or whatever, is a common one. But also sometimes they'll do basic reconnaissance on the network and say, hey, there's other devices here. Maybe there's vulnerable protocols or other vulnerable devices. Go after those. And then maybe we actually get somewhere useful. That's happened, and it's led to compromises of large, companies. So anyway, what is next? Did anyone keep track of that Sophos one? I mean, that's kind of on the same vein of like backdooring things.
So it says that they were like pretty much fighting back against, from what I could tell in this article, they were fighting back against Chinese attackers, right? And so they were. It sounded like they were putting malware on the devices so that they could track when they were getting attacked. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of an interesting angle. It's like, sir, they keep hacking our devices. How are they doing it? Like actually following the rabbit hole down for 5 years on how they were doing it, like figuring out how the supply chain, how are they acquiring the devices? How are they exploiting them? I mean, talk about threat intel. If you're actually on the like development environment of Chinese hackers trying to see what, exploits they're developing against your product, I mean, that's pretty cool, I will say. I do think that's like, I don't know if this is standard or if this is standout. I think I've never heard of this at least. So it must be, I don't know if it's like secret and normal, but I think this is pretty cool to be like installing backdoors on your own devices, shipping them to China, or like, let's make an eBay listing and for like this product or whatever. It's an interesting angle though, but read the whole blog post if you're curious.
Yeah, it's kind of
Is that unethical? Imagine if you buy a Sophos firewall on eBay, they thought they were selling it to China. You're just a guy, and they're monitoring all the stuff you're doing.
I mean, well, then you're not going to be hacking it, so it will be quickly marked off as
You don't know that. What if I run a little? I run a little nuclei scan against my firewall. Am I in trouble?
Well, no, I think that it was a little bit lower level than that. So.
What if I want to change what if I want to get a free license? I don't know.
Yeah. No, they'd be like, well, that's a problem, but it's not our problem.
Yeah. No, I don't know. All right. Next article.
What else? What else we got? Anyone else got any questions?
Microsoft is asking $30 if you want to delay switching to Windows 11. They're getting into the ransomware game.
They've always been in the ransomware game. That's the thing.
That's true. That's true.
A 1-year extension, $30.
That's for the security updates, right?
Yeah, that's extended support.
That might be
Yeah.
the cheapest extended support contract I've ever seen. That's pretty
Yeah.
solid, actually.
I'm in. I'm all in. I'm
So-
pushing my chips in.
Why would Microsoft do this?
So they can make more money.
Carrot and the stick at the
Maybe-
same time.
Yeah, I agree. There's
Maybe
a
been
reason
hue
why.
and cry. Maybe there's been hue and cry over the fact that so many systems can't run Windows 11. Like none of the hardware that I have in my household is capable of running Windows 11, and some of it isn't that old.
Well,
You know what I
looks like
think
you're
it
gonna have
is?
to pay $30.
Yeah.
I think it's a Democratic conspiracy. They kept the price down because, we've got an election coming up tomorrow. And if we lower the price of Microsoft licensing, then the Democrats win.
Is that how it works?
I'm
That's
not
my
connecting the
conspiracy.
dots on that
I
one.
think the one thing that we're all missing on this is that this is not aimed at corporate. This is for home users.
Yeah, that is
Right.
it.
Your mom and pops, your kids that
Maybe-
are playing their
maybe-
video games.
Yeah, and definitely don't know how to
that's what
get
it's
it.
for.
They
And
definitely don't
that's
know how to
where-
get this.
How often do home people, the everyday average Joe, going to go ahead and update their systems? Even if Microsoft says you need to update your system so that way you can run Windows 11, what are the odds of them doing that? Especially with the way the economy's been for a lot of smaller people nowadays.
Well,
And
they're a lot
the
higher
increase
than
in
the odds
prices
of them
and everything.
paying $30 to continue.
Yeah, I feel like
using
it's
their
just a cash grab to get
30
$30.
So
$30 for a
really-
year versus $500 to $1,000 for a new computer.
Yeah, but they don't see it that way. The default option is do nothing. The default
I mean, like, you
option
don't even
is-
need security updates. I mean, like,
No.
I'm just a guy at home,
Correct. Why would I need security updates? I'm just a guy trying to
Like-
get on my malware websites and download crack software. I don't
Yeah.
need updates.
I mean,
I will
photos
say
on
this is
Synology.
I think this is an interesting game to play because Microsoft, like in the past, when they've been backed into a corner between patch it or let it get hacked, they've always chosen patch it. Like Windows Server 2003, when all the Eternal Blue stuff came out and all that, they patched it, even though it was unsupported. It was, was like totally like
so
in
what
the
Corey's
past.
saying
they've
is
gone-
it's totally
but that
worth
was a
the risk.
CYA move. That was a CYA.
What
move.
is this?
You
There's how many
know.
Windows 10 computers do you think there are? Probably 20
Oh,
million
millions.
or billion or billions,
I mean,
probably.
but
Billions
CYA
and billions.
I mean, I get it, but they could just be like, "Well, we told them, and they got hacked." I don't know what,
That's what I'm
Well,
saying.
okay,
That's what I'm.
But by doing the $30, they have guaranteed an opportunity for additional revenue stream that they might
That's
not
what I
get
think they're trying to
always.
test out to see if it's worth.
So
it.
that's one. Two, now they have plausible deniability. Hey, we warned you this was coming. We even gave you an opportunity to protect your systems for another year. All you had to do was cough up $30. So if Joe Blow homeowner decided that he didn't want to update his computer and pay the $30, well, that's not our fault. We gave them the opportunity. Total CYA move. Totally.
Yeah, but
Maybe
when
they're-
is
You
Joe
could do a little
Blow
bit
ever going to
more-
sue Microsoft? I don't know. I think it's.
Deep
I actually-
pockets.
I actually do think this is the most neutral way to handle this problem, and I think it's cool, to be honest, because for the people that don't know and don't care, it will have zero impact on them. They won't get the updates and they won't care. For the people who are take my Windows 10 from my cold dead hands, why I don't know why, but these people exist. They can pay the $30 and continue to use Windows 10. And for everyone else, they already upgraded to Windows 11, so they don't care. I think it's actually and obviously it does cost Microsoft money to support legacy operating systems. That's not rocket science to understand. Keeping these things, teams, probably large teams of people running, is not cheap. Will they make very much money from this though? Probably not. I
I
can't
got
see
another
them-
take.
So do
They're
I.
hit
they're
us.
using it. They're using it to crowdfund an upgrade of Microsoft Teams.
That's a good take.
Oh, no,
just
I will
don't
not-
know if it's
I
gonna
don't
actually
believe
make
that.
it better.
I've got another take. They're using it to go ahead and get people ready to go to prove that the Copilot PCs are worthwhile getting. So they need a little extra time to go ahead and get through that with how complaints have been going on. About
I actually
what those
turned
Copilots
my
do.
Mac into a Copilot PC. I just record my screen all the time.
That's called hey, dude, that's called being a Twitch streamer. That's called being a Twitch streamer. You're confused.
I
There's
think
no,
this is
there's no
Microsoft's-
privacy. There's no need.
This may
Well, the
honestly be Microsoft's attempt to really go after the SaaS platform for the home user. I mean, I know you got the 365 tendency where you can be able to do all that, but for the OS itself, instead of doing the one license cost for, then you own the license, they're going to try to migrate this over to a SaaS offering for the OS system itself. And I think this may be the introductory of that. So if they can get more people to get extended license buy-in, then they may be able to pivot that to the OS itself for the home user. It's my thought.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think that's true. I mean, I genuinely have no understanding of how Windows licensing works. All my Windows computers say activate Windows at the bottom right. So I don't know. But
I've been like that
And they're
for
all
years.
virtual, aren't they?
and I don't know how to make that go away. And I've tried. I have license keys. I'm doing my best here.
The
But
thing
yeah.
that cracks me up too is that we're going backwards. I remember mainframe systems. I remember thin clients and dumb terminals and all of this software as a service, platform as a service. I'm sorry, we're going backwards.
No, I actually,
yeah.
Well,
it feels
I
that
think,
way for us old folks.
I don't know. I don't think we're going backwards. I think $30 is a far cry from having to buy some legacy. They would, in the olden days, you would have had to pay 10x for this. I'm sure there are companies who have. I don't know what the numbers actually are, but I bet you the amount of money that companies have paid to Microsoft for extended support licenses has to be in the billions. Like it has to be. But yeah.
I mean,
anyway,
nowadays,
let's move on.
You can get a license forever. You just got to subscribe to Office 365.
I do think also as an end
It's
user,
Microsoft 365.
yeah, as
They
an end
rebranded.
user, I think it's software as if I have to type in a license key, I'm already out. What am I doing? Just let me pay for it. Go away. Stop asking. And I will say, every time I log into a Microsoft 365 account on my Activate Windows computers, which I have like 50 of, they're always like, "Oh, okay, no problem. We're happy now." I'm like, "Okay, I don't know what I did, but thank you." So, is there any voting security stuff?
No, I was gonna bring that. I was gonna bring
There
that up.
is.
I didn't notice really any election security stuff this year.
Someone linked one in the chat, and I'm now scrolling past all the memes to get back to it.
I'm being
I mean, I've seen people where the screen doesn't work, just all that. But has anybody followed the Own to Pwn and all these other hacking conventions that were able to literally destroy these voting machines? And they said that, we can't fix it in time. And this was like years ago.
Yeah, I mean, the voting machine village was a thing at like DEF CON 2020 or like, it's been a thing forever.
Yeah.
Is anything actually happening from it? Maybe not.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I will say, like, to kind of like put a T on it, one of the articles we already had in our list, and someone just linked it in the chat as well, is that apparently Colorado voting machine passwords ended up in a spreadsheet on the internet. They are BIOS passwords, and the spreadsheet was pasted or posted to their website. I guess no one would ever have physical access to a voting machine, right? It's not like that happens tomorrow or anything. What are you doing in there? Oh, sorry, I'm rebooting the voting machine and getting into the BIOS.
So I think it's interesting, like the voting machine attacks, because they require physical access most of the time, right? And they are definitely possible, and there have been known attacks, so on and so forth, right? What we haven't seen though is them, doing it at scale or causing some sufficient, change in, the results, right? At least not that we've seen. All right. No one's been able to, come out with that. So it is kind of interesting. I think it's something that we should continue to look at and look into attack, right? But there are other machines out there. Have you guys heard them? ATMs. They're also vulnerable to the same thing. It seems like might be more useful to have spit out money than get one extra vote. So.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like, I don't know. I know that, not to get political, but we know that I don't know how this is going to go tomorrow, how much people are going to cry foul and how much drama there's going to be. But I agree with Ralph that like as a target, they're just you're fighting a losing battle. Hundreds of millions of people are going to vote tomorrow, and blowing up 10 of them is not going to probably make a meaningful change in 99% of the country. Like there might be one county in Iowa or whatever where it matters.
Exactly.
But like 99% of the country, like around where I live, which is a very blue area, people were like blowing up or like lighting voter drop boxes on fire or whatever. It's like, what is this going to do? Like, first of all, it's raining. This isn't going to stay, like, it's not going to stay on fire. Second of all, like, you're going to wipe out like 30 votes that were already, kind of, I don't know. It is like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I'm just saying like from a threat vector perspective, it's more about, drama and causing news articles and clippable moments than it is actually influencing an election, in my opinion. But anyway, we should,
yeah, it's that whole what can they get access to if they can't, they don't know how to access things at scale. Hey, there's a mail drop box. Hey, I got nothing better to do on a Saturday night. I'm going to go firebomb a bunch.
Yes, totally.
Like I could break into any building. All I have to do is drive my car through the front door, but that's not like the best way to do it. Right?
That is true. No, Ralph, hold on, Ralph. There's a pen test finding for that. Insufficient bollards, critical severity. Anyway.
Is this the one industry where technology has caused a bigger detriment to than any other industry? In terms of, I'm an old, but I remember within like 24 hours of all the polls closing, we knew who the election winner was. And now that we have voting machines and all this other trash, it seems like we're waiting weeks and months, potentially in some states, to know who the F the winner is.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of agree. My state does only mail-in ballots, all paper, and it's fine. I've never used a voting machine. I don't need a voting machine. I just use my pen and paper like Scantron and when I was a kid in school. I'm sure all those are just fed into a machine. It works. I mean, there are machines, but they're not accessible to end users. I don't know. I think it's just the automation. You do need some computer at some point to tabulate the results, right? Like manually counting all those
the
ballots.
Night of, right? And not like 3 weeks later. Which, by the way, the 3 weeks later mostly is because of how close it's been, right? And then the fact that you have to recount 900 times. Right.
Not just that. It's not just that. It is the mail-in ballots. It's the states that don't allow them to open them up in advance. They've got millions of votes per state that are coming in from early voting or mail-in voting. And there are a bunch of states like Wisconsin that can't open those ballots until the day of the election themselves.
Oh yeah, I'm in that area. I hate that where I'm like, I did this early. When are they going to be counted? It's like starting 7 a.m. tomorrow. I'm like, well, that's going to make for a long day.
Mine's already been counted.
I am in one of those counties that absolutely comes down to like 80 votes. So.
Yeah. I will say every time they recount, they have to post another password to that spreadsheet. It's really inconvenient. All right. I say we close it out. Everyone, if you're listening and you haven't already voted, go vote tomorrow or whatever. And I won't be here next week, but thanks everyone for coming. Thanks everyone for listening. Get a pen test, get a sock. Get whatever Eric sells. I don't know what
get an anti-sock.
Get whatever Eric sells. This is awesome.
Get you some Eric. Have him. Yeah.
Oh my God. Insert massive adult comments here. Here you go.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.